We will begin with cantorial soloist Cheryl Eitman singing Yesh Kochavim. There are stars. The original text is by Israeli paratrooper Hannah Senish. It is very fitting since this evening begins Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה המבהיקים בחשכת המלאים, הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. We remember, we remember.
We gather together today as the dear family and friends of David P. Kraus. As we mourn his life, we must also celebrate the rich life he led. Death has taken our beloved David. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For his love that united us in life, and which death cannot sever. For his companionship, which we shared along life's path, which still continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and his mind, which brought us joy and happiness, and now become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, God, we give you our praise. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'nai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people were well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. A poem by Kathy Zink. Take time to talk, for you may ask of all things unknown to you. Take time to laugh, for smiles relinquish sorrow and spread happiness. Take time to think, for the realm of knowledge is never ending. Take time to see, for there is beauty in every part of the world around you. Take time to feel, for the emotions of your heart often control the reasoning of your mind. Take time to live, for each day is filled with new opportunities that will be gone tomorrow. Take time to dream, for survival is forever challenging the powers of your imagination. Take time to love, for the sharing of all these things is the true miracle of life. Adonai, mi yagor ba'ohalecha, mi yishkon b'har kodshecha. Psalm 15. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? A man of integrity who acts justly and speaks truth in his heart, who has no slander on his tongue, who does no evil to his friend and has no insult for his neighbor, who is contempt for the wicked but honors those who fear God, who gives his word and come what may, does not retract, who does not exploit others for gain nor take bribes against the innocent. One who lives in this way shall never be shaken. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream to be and oh to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bin adesha yarbit seni, omei minachot yanachaleni. If you're familiar, please join me in the words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. The Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidic Rebbe, once observed that there are 3 ways to mourn. The first is with tears, the second is with silence, and the third is with song. When we mourn someone truly beloved, we experience all 3. Tears at first, then silence as our grief settles more deeply, and finally song as we're able to celebrate the memories we hold deep in our hearts. So today is a time for tears as we say our final goodbyes to David, who was taken from us far too soon. We'll each remember David in our own way. Kelly will remember David as her loving father. Pat remembered David as her beloved companion. Throughout his life, David was a caring son to Charles and Jocelyn, and a dear brother and brother-in-law to Eldon and Connie, and Alan and Bonnie, and a devoted uncle to Sally and Paul, Brian and Sarah, Daniel, Ben and Sarah, Alex and Ian. David was also a special cousin to Keith and Christine, Carol and Frank, Kathy and Ken and Terry, and many, many other extended family members. David loved his family and his friends fiercely, and he loved his dog, Daisy. I did not have the pleasure to know David in life, so I'd like to invite his brother Alan and then his cousin Keith to share some personal thoughts about David.
Wow, look at this. I am so touched that you've all taken time out of your lives to be with our family. And David would be so gratified, and if you were here, he'd probably look around and say, hey, who died? And I would say to David, you died. He'd say, really? All these people? I'd say, yeah, all these people. Because David, I'm not sure, realized how many people loved him and valued him. So I want to thank everybody for the emails, the calls, postings on social media. It is so appreciated. So over the last 8 years or so, Dave and I would talk several times a week. And sometimes he'd stop by my office. My office was like walking distance of his apartment. And no matter when he would stop by, no matter what I was doing, I would stop because David would come in my office and we would talk and we would laugh. And no one could make me laugh harder than David. Now he had this talent for impersonation and characterization. I thought I was with Richard Pryor, Jonathan Winters, maybe a little Robin Williams, but he was a little bit old school than that. And he'd just get going. And this is important. When he would do that, no matter who he was lampooning, and it often was me, it was never mean-spirited. Never mean-spirited. Just so damn funny. Hey, can I say damn?
Yeah.
Oh. Just want to clear it with a rabbi. So almost 9 years ago, I spoke at my father's funeral, and I know many of you were at that funeral. And I'm sure you remember everything I said. What I remember is I was reflecting about the stories that people tell after someone dies. And the fact that we can tell a lot about the person from those stories. I mean, was he kind? Was he giving? Was he generous? Was he mean? You know, the stories people tell. So there are people here that can tell David stories for hours. I'm looking for you, I know. And we would laugh and we would cry from those stories. And we'll probably do that in the days to come. But I want to talk about the picture that would emerge about David from those stories. And I think the picture that would be painted, number one, he loved his family. And he was a devoted friend. He was kind, generous, with his time and his money. And even when he didn't have it, he'd share that too. He sought justice for those who were in the greatest need. He'd never sell out a client. You would also know from his stories, if they're truthful stories, that David was a complex man. There were dark times in his life where he struggled with his demons. And I know, because we would talk about this, that he suffered many regrets. And he would tell me how he felt he had lost opportunities professionally and most importantly personally. But David never gave up. Never gave up. He certainly, in recent years, made up a lot for those lost opportunities that he felt he lost. He met and built a life with Pat, and he loved her, and I know Pat loved him very much. He so enjoyed their travels together and the times that they just spent hanging out. You only have to look at David's photos on social media to know what he really valued. His family, of course his daughter, Pat. You go into his apartment and it's interesting. You know, he had a lot of pictures, and all those pictures, family. Yeah. And then he'd have pictures of when he was a little boy, you know, simpler times with my parents. And of course, his time with Pat. This was David. So why am I doing this? Why am I talking today? I mean, it's so hard. Well, so I thought about this over the last couple days. And so I want to speak for selfish reasons. At least I think they're selfish. Because when we lose someone and our hearts are broken, we do not want to let go. Listen, it's not rational thinking here. I'm just saying is that when this occurs, we want the world to stop. We want it to stop for everyone because we're shattered, and everyone should know it. Not rational. And I do this, I tell stories because I think it's my way we're keeping the dead with us. In a way, it extends their life. Even as the picture is fading and we're starting to lose what the voice even sounds like. So, by talking about David, I'm not letting him go. So my view, that's all, and that's all I can speak for, it's my view, is that grief, it's a personal process. There are no shortcuts, and this is part of my process, and let's face it, you guys can't leave, right? You can, but it'd be so rude. So if you're of my age, it was hard to avoid reading the research of Kubler-Ross, who she wrote a lot about grief and dying, and still worth reading. And she wrote, "The reality is that you will grieve forever. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it. You will heal, and you will rebuild yourself around the loss you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same. Nor should you be the same, nor would you want to." So there's a special place that our family has gone since I'm a little boy. I mean, like an infant. My cousins know what I'm talking about. And we're at this very, very special place. We do all kinds of activities. I mean, some people say kind of nerdy activities because we swim, we're outside, and we like to play cards. We play cards. And no electronic interruptions. So does anyone play hearts anymore? I see people shaking their heads. Yes, I'm not talking about on the internet or on your iPad. I'm just talking about sit down with friends and family, play hearts. So we play hearts. I mean, since my boys are here with me, so we play these card games. So So do you try to shoot the moon? The people who shook their heads, do you try to shoot the moon? Like on every hand? I mean, every hand? I mean, who does that? Who does that? Oh, if you're thinking, maybe David Kraus does that, right? You would be right. David Kraus, every hand, he tries to shoot the moon. So when we were talking the other evening, Bonnie, my wife, we were talking about this, and she says, you know, what a perfect metaphor for David and how he lived life. And so true, because that was David, go large or go home. He put it all out there, and he let it fly. Have a smart wife. So sibling relationships are complicated. Those of you who have siblings, you know what I'm talking about. And my relationship with David was difficult at times. But the last 8 years were good and getting better. So I'll tell you this story. A few years ago, I'm preparing for a criminal trial. And this was a hard case, difficult facts. And we talk about this stuff, and David said, hey, can I help? And he's the type of guy, if he said, I want to help, he meant it. And I don't know, I said, yeah, you want to sit second chair? You want to try this case with me? We'll work together. And I could just see from his face that he was really happy about that. And I'd never done that before. So I'll tell you, he did. He sat with me, and he was a great help. He was insightful, great suggestions, so talented, so capable. So the verdict was not the complete success I was hoping for, and I was devastated. I thought I should win it all. So David tells me, he says, you did a great job. You did a great job, and I think there's a lot of good issues on appeal, and the lawyers who are here know what I'm talking about. And I'm telling you, I didn't want to talk about it. I was not in a good frame of mind. So David, besides trying to prop me up, he takes it upon himself. He gets excellent appellate counsel appointed. 9 months later, the case is decided. It's reversed. All charges dismissed. A complete acquittal. Complete acquittal. So this isn't a story, a legal story, or a story about trials. That's not the point here. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about my brother. In that moment, you see, he was carrying me. But that was David. He was thinking about me. It was me needing him. So, it's kind of a change in the relationship. He's just no longer my kid brother. He's a participant. So he calls me up several months ago. And this is David calling me. And the first thing out of his mouth is he says, hey, you're not going to believe what I just did. Okay, there's people laughing here. He says, you're not going to believe what I just did. And I said, David, I don't think I want to start our conversation that way. Not a good start. He says, no. Listen, it's all good. Let me tell you what I did. I said, okay, what'd you do? So he says to me, I always wanted to be in a play. Always wanted to be in a play. I said, really? He says, like he doesn't perform all the time, but he says, so what'd you do? He says, I went to an open audition at the Beechwood Community Theater. And I said, yeah. He says, yeah, they seem to like me. And I said, oh, really? It is Mary Poppins, by the way, which is hilarious. So and he tells me that at this audition, he says there's all these extremely talented, experienced actors and singers, and he can't believe that he got attention. But within a week, he calls me back, or whenever it was, and he says, I got a part. First time out of the box. He gets a talking part, and he gets a speaking part. He was just so thrilled and proud. And what a perfect activity for David, because we all know how talented he was. The story doesn't end there, because shortly after rehearsals begin, this is true, Kelly. Shortly after rehearsals begin, I'm talking to him, and I said, well, how's it going? He says, going great. I go, well, yeah. He says, I'm ad-libbing all the time. And I said, your first production, first time you're in a play, and you're adding lines to your part, giving credence that there are no small actors, of course. But I said, well, how's that being received? Oh, director loves it. Director loves it. And I love cracking up the cast members. So that was David. So in a matter of a few months, he made such a large group of new friends, and I saw the beautiful sentiments written by his cast members and the indelible mark that David made. And by the way, he was recently cast and was in rehearsal for a production of Beauty and the Beast. And I feel bad for that director, because, listen, replacing David, and again, if you're of a certain age, it's like being the second Darren on Bewitched, right? The first guy's always better, right? And let's face it, David is a hard act to follow. He is. So many gifts, talents, charisma. Over the last few years, we've had so much fun together, play music with my son, Ben, and other people. And you should know the music was very important to David. It was an important part of his life. He had so much knowledge, and it's no surprise, of course, that he was a wonderful performer. So here's the good news, if there's good news. I will never have to talk at one of my brother's funerals again. Now, how ironic that I'm the last son of Joe and Charlie Kraus standing. Now, if David were looking at this, he would say, not how you would bet in Vegas. And he's still on a first-name basis with a number of casino workers, but I will tell you those are other stories that we'll tell another time. But he would say, but you know, sometimes long shots pay off, because that was David. So we have lost a valued member of the legal community, a cousin, uncle, father, a friend, a love companion, and a brother. So I don't know who wrote this, but it's a lot more eloquent than me. And it talks about this complicated, crazy relationship if you have siblings. To the outside world, we all grow old, but not to brothers and sisters. We know each other as we always were. We know each other's hearts. We share family jokes. We remember family feuds and secrets, family griefs and joys. We live outside the touch of time. Thank you all so much for being here. It's made this hard job a lot easier. Thanks.
Thank you for your beautiful, touching words. We'll invite Keith to come forward.
Gotta have these. I want to reiterate some of what Alan said, I'll try not to repeat, but the first thing I want to say is a hearty thank you to each and every one of you. It does mean an awful lot for you to be here. To those of you that don't know me, I'm Keith Kraus. I'm David's first cousin. To those of you that do know me, I'm sure there's a few that are worried what I'm going to say, but I'll keep it clean. It's more than a little ironic to me that when I got the call that David had passed, I was on my way out of town to Las Vegas, and you know, there's a lot of Las Vegas stories with David that I will not be repeating here. But when I was there, I decided to go. I talked to Alan. We weren't sure when the arrangements were going to be. I said I could always take a flight back, which I did. I took the red eye last night, so I'm on an hour and a half of sleep, and it feels real good, but it does not feel good to be here doing this. I did, when I was in Vegas, I was sort of, you know, communing with David spiritually, and he did make an over-under bet of 150 people in the crowd. So that was his line, and I'm 8-1 against me going through this whole thing without shedding a tear. And those were his lines. You know, Las Vegas is not exactly a traditional venue to grieve, and to try and put in perspective this. You know, I kept getting hit with images and memories and thoughts. The earliest memory I have of David, I don't know if Alan will remember this, but I think our parents used to get together on New Year's Eve. I couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. And I'd go over to, they'd drop me at his house, and I guess the parents would all go out, and David was running around chasing me and pinching me. And it freaked me out a little bit, and I don't know if I verbalized it to my folks that you know, I was uneasy about all this. I didn't really want to go there. I mean, we, you know, they lived in Beechwood, we lived in Shaker. We weren't, you know, we weren't that tight back then. And then, you know, and it's all a fog. Okay, I mean, you know, you get older, you don't remember like you used to. I can't put dates on things. Not just because I'm on an hour and a half worth of sleep, but I feel that we reconnected in the law school era. And during that time, we spent a lot of time at the racetrack. And it's true. I mean, I'm just speaking the truth. I have mixed feelings about it because I feel this much guilty that somehow I got him on this gambling path. But, you know, we used to go to, you know, Sands Deli. I'd get the racing form. That was back when they had racing forms, and we would have brunch with Janice, I can't think of her name, the waitress at Sands Deli, and go to Thistledown, and probably sometimes go to Northfield Park in the evenings. But we got closer then. But, you know, I can't put the time frame on it. There were these big gaps of time. I know he moved out of state for a period of time, and there were other times when he was struggling. And you know, when we really became close and when we reconnected, for me, the benchmark point was, and I you know, I'm close here, plus or minus 2 years. It was probably about 8 years ago, and I don't remember whether Alan told me that he ended up in Metro. I don't know how I found out, but Kristen and I went and saw him in Metro, and I don't know, he was this close to checking out then, and he wasn't really recognizable. It was a very difficult thing to see for me, and but he made it. I mean, Alan is actually the one that, I know you guys were all expecting funny stuff, right? I think Alan ended up diagnosing what the issue was. You know, he had an infection with like an abscessed tooth or something. So whatever, he gets out of Metro, he ends up at, I think this Benjamin Rose place on Fairhill, and I remember going to visit him, and I think they had him, like, he restrained or something, and I was, in typical David, I'm feeding him ice chips. I mean, there was a nurse there. I said, well, you can give him ice chips. So I'm feeding him ice chips, and David says, he goes, there's this machine down the hall, go get me a Coke. And I said, David, I can't, you got a diet restriction, I can't give you a Coke, you know, but, and from there he ended up in Akron, which is where he met Pat, and we would visit him. And I don't know, it just, we reconnected, and we kind of took him under our wings, not really out of a sense of guilt or anything like that, but it just happened, and we helped him get an apartment, and then, he was, I think he knew that he had been given a second chance. He knew how close he'd come, and he got his act together, and he got his law license back, and he started exercising and taking care of himself, and he doubled down his efforts with his family and his friends, and it was a beautiful thing to be a part of. And he loved his family, he loved his friends, he loved his clients. I mean, he was full of life, but there's an elephant in the room, right? I mean, he had struggles. I'm not going to get into it, and I'm not, there's a sadness to it, because he was doing all these good things, and 95% of the time, he was doing the right thing, and he tried, and I know he struggled, and it was beneath the surface, and it wasn't always all good, but he became such a big part of our lives. Everybody, I mean, our family, and we did what we could. So, but David was a mixed bag, and I don't think he's terribly different than everybody else. I think everybody struggles, right? I don't care what your age is, or your race is, or whatever your situation is, everyone has their own shtick, right? His highs and lows were, a little bit more extreme, and I was there for some of them. I was there for some lows, and I was there for some highs, and his highs were so good, he could make you laugh. I mean, he was a funny dude with the impersonations, his quick wit. We had a zillion catchphrases, which, wouldn't mean anything to people here, but I mean, we had a long history. We had a long history, and so to me, through the fog of lack of sleep, and it's tough enough to hit a golf ball under the best of circumstances, but having this in the background really made my 82 yesterday good. But to me, the takeaway is that David is a lesson in compassion and forgiveness. There would have been plenty of opportunities to say, you know what, done, don't need this anymore. But I think the life lesson, I don't know, I'm getting way too heavy, is that you should be sympathetic to whoever is in your life that's struggling with whatever they're struggling, and try and help them. I choose to remember the good times and the high notes and all the good things that he did and the great times we had. I'm thankful for the 8 years that we had together when he was this close to checking out. It's way too soon, but I'm thankful for that, and we loved him, and we're going to miss him.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Paige Schiller and Amy Gitterman, who are, and who? Lauren, who are new friends of David's from the Beechwood Community Theater.
That's okay. We actually have not been longtime friends of David's. In fact, very recently. In December, I was going through some very rough times, and he had found such happiness with our group that he's actually one of the reasons that I got through it so well. So I'm very honored to be here and to be speaking for him as my own. We have a compilation of many things that have been said from people in our group in the last few days that we would like to share with you. So here's our tribute to our friend David Kraus. To improvise, to compose, or simultaneously compose and perform on the spur of the moment without any preparation. One must be clever, quick-witted, creative, and extremely resourceful. David, as we lovingly refer to as the chairman, was all of those things, and improvising was only one of his many specialties.
David loved to make others laugh. He would want us to spread positive energy and share some clever wit and humor today. So that's what we're going to try to do today while sharing some of the words from the fellow cast members.
David made his mark in a short time at Beechwood Community Theater with a wry sense of humor and a knack for getting along with folks of all ages. He had found the perfect place to try on his character shoes. What you may not have known was that David hung out with Rory, our musical director, by the piano and sang bits from the Great American Songbook. Imagine David belting out Cole Porter's Night and Day or Gershwin's Summertime. He never failed to surprise or amaze us.
David took care of the cast, bringing treats and coffee on many occasions. He joined us after shows for laughs and eats. He became an integral part of our acting community.
He had a huge heart and a sharp mind. He cracked me up, and he also ticked me off. He surprised us with coffee, and he ticked me off. He made me think. He kept me on my toes. He ticked me off. He didn't always play by the rules, and he made me laugh, and often he bent the rules and ticked off the director.
And then David and I would sit in the dressing room for an hour after a rehearsal or performance, at least an hour. When we learned that we both loved Steely Dan, he would challenge me with the most obscure Steely Dan songs, and most of the time I would pretend that I knew them, when in reality I didn't. David, on the other hand, knew every word.
David made me smile. His enthusiasm for all things theater was endless. It has been such fun to watch him grow as an actor. He was generous to a fault. He made me laugh until I cried. He always managed to make all of us smile.
Then he'd introduce me to a couple of his invented characters, mostly funny voices he would use to entertain his colleagues in the legal profession. He'd preface with something like, "This one's not very PC," and then launch into it, although most of them were not very PC, but they were still pretty funny.
David Kraus made a strong first impression. I still remember the day I sold him Beechwood Bison t-shirts on the first Friday night football game this past fall. He was obviously unforgettable because as soon as he attended his first cast meeting, I knew exactly who he was.
As the thunderstorms rolled through Shaker Heights and Beechwood the other night, I think David was helping the old man in the sky pick out the thunder. "Yeah, give him that one. Oh, good one. Now surprise him with this big loud one. That's the way to do it."
I had the pleasure of knowing David through my daughters. David took the girls under his wing and told them every day how special they were to him. He encouraged them and supported them. He was a kind person who wore his heart on his sleeve. He had a sentimental side. He made everyone laugh. He had a positive attitude and was always singing. I will forever be grateful for how he made my kids feel and how he always made me smile.
I will miss his quiet presence. Sometimes he would sit by quietly taking everything in. Just knowing he was standing there and sending quiet support and warmth was a comfort. I like to think he will continue to stand quietly by sending comfort and light from a higher, better place.
David had a tendency to not exactly follow the script. He took a few liberties on stage and got away with them because he was a sweet man with a magnetic personality. He was loved by all. However, his unpredictable delivery at times also may have ticked some people off.
I only knew David through theater, but what I knew was wonderful. I had the privilege to perform with him in Mary Poppins, and I've rarely enjoyed working with someone of his enthusiasm and fervor. He seized the experience with both hands and hugged it for all it was worth. He was a good performer on stage and a great cast member backstage, the kind that every other actor thinks, I'd like to work with him again.
David attended every rehearsal, even when the schedule didn't call for his character. He was one of the only actors I'd encountered who actually preferred the smaller role. It was not about having a lot of lines to David. It was more about having the experience and enjoying the moment. It was more about the people and being part of something larger than just the play. We have learned from David that life is really about connecting with people and taking the time to make them smile. And on occasion, just to get a rise out of them, and yes, to sometimes even tick them off.
David was such a sweet man who was wonderful to everyone, especially my kids, who quickly and lovingly regarded him as Uncle David. David, you will be greatly missed, and we thank you for making an everlasting imprint on my children's heart. Your energy and enthusiasm were a delight to be around both off and on the stage. I feel blessed that I got to know you and you were a part of our Beechwood Community Theater family.
I will never forget your enthusiasm, dedication, and the thoughtfulness you brought to every rehearsal, every performance, and of course, our nights out at the Winking Lizard.
Thank you for waltzing into my life this past fall. I have loved sharing the stage with you. We all have. It won't be the same without you. You will be truly missed. Our Beauty and the Beast performances will be dedicated in your honor, dear friend. Like you, it will generate love, warmth, humor, and much heart.
That was not a plug. But if you'd like to come see the show. Anyway. So for now, parting is such sweet sorrow. And I'll say goodbye until, say good day until we meet again on a stage in the great beyond. Until then, you will continue to make those in heaven smile. And yes, you may also tick them off.
David, you will forever be in our hearts. You will forever be our friend.
May your infectious positivity be an inspiration to all of us tomorrow and for years to come. May your memory be a blessing to all who knew you.
Ben and Frank, thank you all for your beautiful personal words, and now Ben and Frank will share Tears in Heaven.
Hey, 1, 2, 3, what you doing over there? I'm trying to see what 1, 2, 3 was doing there, but
would you know my name if I saw you in heaven? Would it be the same if I saw you in heaven? I must be strong and carry on, 'cause I know I don't belong here in heaven. Would you hold my hand if I saw you in heaven? Would you help me stand If I saw you in heaven, I'll find my way through night and day, 'cause I know I just can't stay here in heaven. Time can bring you down, time can bend your knees. Time can break your heart, have you begging please, begging please. Beyond the door, there's peace, I'm sure, and I know there'll be no more tears in heaven. Thank you.
Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and then perhaps from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and back, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see victory lies, not at some high place along the way, but having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage to life everlasting. If you're able, please rise now for El Malay Rachamim.
רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמות דוד בן הסקל שהלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ולומר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved David P. Kraus, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. Please be seated for just a few moments. This concludes our service. We'll proceed from here to Beit Olam Cemetery for burial. And following burial, David's family receiving visitors at Keith and Christine's home, 2928 Sherbrooke Valley Court in Willoughby Hills. Following burial until 8 p.m. tonight, and tomorrow, Monday, 2 to 4.